Those bull chicks are here to slay. Stop what you're doing, plug in and play. Those bull chicks will make your day. So stop what you're doing and say, those bull chicks.
Hey guys, it's Karli and I again. We're here for part 2 of our Alopecia Awareness episode. We're going to kind of tie off last episode. We were going over mental health and psychological impact on alopecia and what it has on people. So we're going to kind of close off the first one with the beginning of this, and then we're going to jump into a lot of cool information we found. So I know Karli was kind of talking at the end and then I cut her off. So I'm going to let her finish her thoughts right here.
All right, yeah. So before we were talking a little bit about treatment with alopecia and how when you go to a dermatologist, you're kind of struck with this diagnosis, and the only options you're given are prescription options, whether that be injections, steroid creams, et cetera, et cetera. And I wanted to ask you, because you might have heard of this and you're a little bit more familiar, possibly. I've been a little bit off of social media when it comes to treatment options, but I've seen some folks going through there's like a new medication that apparently helps alopecians and I've seen, results from those people on a personal level. It's not like an ad that's just being spit out.
Right. Yeah, right.
But I don't know too much about it. Do you have you looked up any information about that?
Yeah,
I know one
I
of them
have.
it's Omni.
There was a couple of people too that reached out and that I followed that said that they have been on the treatment. There is two. There's one. Let me see. Let me get this right. I think it's Minoxidil or hold on. Let me look it up. Let's see. There is the
Sorry, I do my homework beforehand.
Yeah, no, me too. I should have had this pulled up. Okay, let's see. So this says, I don't know how to say this. Ombulamint, something like that. That's the main one. And then there was a second one that came out, and it's called, so this is the first one. It was an oral treatment called, man, these names, Riddlesibinib.
Okay.
I know that sounds crazy, but that's the real name.
Yep.
And there's like Barsatibnib or something like that, which are JAK inhibitors. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the so Olumiant, I'm assuming it's how it's pronounced, is like the brand name for that, or like a brand name for that one, for the JAK inhibitor.
Yep.
Gotcha.
I've seen actually a couple of people that said, obviously in the beginning, not much change for the first couple of months, which obviously your body's probably trying to just get used to it and recognizing it and what's going on. But a lot of people that I know that I've seen on social media, they have growth, like fuzz and hair and stuff like that. But I did see what was really interesting in all the research I looked at too. It did say you're going to have to continue treatment. You can't get off of it and then it's repaired. This has to be like a lifelong thing if you want your hair back. So that's why I was a little worried about it, because I'm like, do I want to be on medication for the rest of my life?
Yeah, some of the side effects for some folks have been a little bit shaky too. I've heard like mostly good things, but then seeing real people post these things about their side effects is a little bit more alarming.
Right.
And then also issues with insurance covering it. So just something to keep in mind if you're like thinking about that. And then, if your insurance can cover, apparently it's extremely expensive. So it's
us with alopecia really just, even with wigs too, not just medication, with wigs. Yeah. Insurance doesn't cover it for me.
Super expensive, right? Oh yeah, right. Insurance won't cover any of that. And that's why I know is another reason for like rejecting the treatments, like the steroid treatments when I had been getting them. Of course, now it might be a little bit different, but of course, this is 13 years down the line. I'm a lot, my mindset towards it is a lot different than it was then. Right. So I know a lot of folks have asked others, like, if there's a treatment, would you get it? And, that's a personal question.
Yeah. Oh,
but
absolutely.
Everyone has their reasons for saying, of course I would, but what's the catch? And that's the kind of the case with some of these new treatments. It's like, okay, yeah, it seems like it's working for a lot of people, but what's the catch for me personally? Whether that be financially, even medically, like, is it worth
it
being susceptible to certain illnesses and whatnot?
Absolutely. What's funny too is my answer to that question could be different on any day. It could be like one day where I don't really care about my alopecia, and I'd be like, no, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Or it could be where right in the beginning when I started, I think this was probably 4 or 5 months ago, where
Hmm.
my alopecia, my patches just started going like
Yep.
I've never seen before. And I had some tough days where I just, once again, swore it. I was swearing it up and down because I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know if I do this. Like, how am I able to do this for the rest of my life? Like,
Yeah.
what the heck? What were the cards I was played? What happened in life?
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But then now, today, I'm like, oh, I don't really
Okay.
care. So it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
weird. I mean, it could be different any day. I could want it
Absolutely.
or not want it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
why it's hard for me to commit to something like that because I'm like, what if I regret it? What if I didn't
Yes.
want to do it? What if I get sick or some other illness because of it? I'm
Exactly.
like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a good point to make. And I was offered a treatment maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. I went to a dermatologist just for answers. Like I said, hey, I already know I have alopecia areata. You don't need to tell me. I don't want this in this treatment, but can you tell me anything about underlying causes or anything like that? How's the research progressed over the last 10 years? And they couldn't give me a single answer, but they offered me a treatment that was, I don't know exactly which treatment it was, but they said, oh, like it could, increase the chance of malignant cell growth. And that did not sound good to me. It's like,
I'm
would
okay.
I'd rather be patchy or bald than have that like side effect. I
Yes,
don't think it's worth it at that
absolutely.
point. But they did, of course, they didn't push it on me. They were just like, hey, this is available if you want to be a part of this trial. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm all right. And I ended up leaving a 15-minute appointment with an alopecia areata diagnosis, which is really silly
Yeah,
because I
right.
already knew that and
You
I already
already
had an
do.
official diagnosis. Yeah, I already knew. So it was, not really worth it. But these were some top experts in the field, apparently. And I was a little disappointed because this is where we still are in this field
It
of
kinda
research.
seems just, like, stagnant, like, it hasn't really
It's
gone
yes, it's
anywhere.
very stagnant, and I know
Yeah.
it's because it's not considered life-threatening. I don't know as much about the research as others, but there might be some links to other autoimmune conditions.
Yeah.
And something I'm finding out, like my family is riddled with autoimmune conditions, so
Yep.
there's
Mine too.
definitely, I mean, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's anything new that's come out about any of that
You
either.
you know what's
But I've
interesting too? I was gonna say a part of,
Mhm.
the new drugs, the FDA approved drugs that are coming out for areata, which is
Mhm.
funny because they specifically say severe alopecia areata is what it's for. It's not for people
Okay.
with universalis. It's not for people with totalis. You have to have severe AA.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. But I think if I tried it, I'd be scared for the psychological impact. If I just start growing hair and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, my hopes are up. I'm growing all my hair back.
Right. Right.
And then it just stops working. And what if
Yep.
I start
Yep.
losing more hair? What if it
Mhm.
makes it into universalis or totalis? What if I don't have areata anymore and it progresses it?
Yeah. Yeah.
All of that psychologically, I don't know if I want to put myself through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, and it's anxiety inducing is what it is. Amazingly anxiety inducing. And that, like you said, that false hope of like
Ugh,
growing some hair and then
yeah.
losing it again, like we already deal with that as it is on
Day to
a, I
day.
mean, it's not daily, yeah, it's day to day, but then like, but those patches come and go
Eh,
over months and months
absolutely.
and years. And so I remember, post getting, I got tattoo on the side of my head and then all of that hair grew back and I was like, wow, that's interesting, but kind of
Yeah.
cool, I guess. I still
Yeah,
shaved
right.
it so I could see the tattoo, and then
Of
and then
course.
suddenly it started falling back out again. And then that same like cycle, and I was like, well, confirms, my reasoning for getting the tattoo. But then after that, I was like, wait, this is coming out way more than last time. And then the cycle continues and it
Ugh,
happens
I
same thing with the
know.
back of my head. So it's that, and then you have to wonder, like, do I want to go through that cycle again and again and again, which is, I mean, even the
Mhm.
medication could cause that too. Like, you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know, you would have to be on it forever. And what if it changes? What if there's something eventually that comes out and says, hey, this is recalled for X, Y,
Yep.
and Z?
Well,
Um,
I just saw
yeah.
you just reminded me of something. There was someone, I
Hmm.
can't remember who it was. I probably wouldn't put them on blast anyway, just for their privacy reasons. But I remember I stumbled across an account right when that first got approved, or people were on the trial. I think it was people were on the
Okay.
trial. I saw some
Yeah.
people that were posting on the trial, and she had amazing growth like I've never
Yeah.
seen before. I was like, whoa, she just had hair coming out everywhere and she was so happy about it. And I think she went on the trial for as long as it was. And she said, okay, I'm going to continue this. It got FDA approved and she wanted to continue it. And then it
Mhm.
all went away, all of it.
Yeah.
And she said, I don't know
Oh
if
my
I can do
gosh.
this again. Like that is just tragic to me that
Yeah.
I had all my hair back and then it all went away. And I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
Nope.
Right. You feel like you've made progress and you feel like it's done and it's not. And that's kind of that feeling that's stripped away every single
Oh,
time. And like you said, the
right.
psychological effects are like pretty wicked, pretty wild because
Yeah.
yeah, and I try to describe that part of it to people. I'm like, well, sometimes I can rock it, so to say. People are like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you do well. I'm like, well, sometimes I do well, but in reality, it's not, they're not all great days,
Yep.
which is why I'm like, therapy is going to be a continual thing for the rest of my life. I'm going to be, for all the reasons, not just for alopecia, but I'm
Oh,
going to be
absolutely.
doing this
Just
for
life. Yeah.
forever for life. Exactly, it's
Yeah.
healthy in general, but like I've
Hmm.
got things
Yeah,
that I got
right.
to take care of. We got things. And so, but the alopecia ties into all of those things. My, body image issues from an abusive relationship tie
Yep.
into like alopecia ties into all of that. It's
Everything.
pretty wild. And yeah, like how it's, it'll impact people for the rest of their lives. So it's not just you maintain it and then it's done. It's
Right.
constant. It's going to be constant, but those
Absolutely.
conversations do get easier. And that's, I know, another cliche. I know I mentioned this before, like in the other episode, that it does get easier, but it does as you continue to talk about it.
Hmm.
Shutting yourself off is, that's a coping mechanism for a lot of people, but it's not always good in the long run to do it. So whether you're talking to
Absolutely.
people like in your life, your support system, or therapy need, or just mental health services need to be more accessible, generally
It should be
speaking.
one of the main things that is
Yeah,
suggested when people get diagnosed because
absolutely.
it's so important. It's such a key
Yeah,
factor of
yeah.
you working through stuff
Right, and
because
be covered too. It needs to be
oh,
covered. Like,
yes,
come on, what are we
100%. I
Yeah.
know. I mean, like one person that I love is Allison Mann. She
Mhm,
is a therapist and she
mhm.
specifically wants to be a therapist for people with hair loss. And I think that
Yeah.
is huge. I
Yes.
think that is so
Yep.
huge because there's a ton of people I know that want to go to therapy or have talked about
Mhm.
going to therapy or even said they didn't want to because the person they would talk to, the therapist they would get, didn't have hair loss. So they didn't get it.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah,
huge
right.
that she
It
is kind
is
of focusing
huge.
on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The work she's doing is wonderful. Like, oh my gosh.
Incredible.
And that's so important. No one I know of is doing it. So
Right.
besides her. Yeah. So that's
It's
like
so needed.
so needed
Yeah.
because like I already have had therapists that have all been women, so I could relate to, they can relate to me and I can relate to them.
Yeah.
But taking this to the next level, it's like, you know, you can talk about body image issues in so many different ways, but alopecia is just on a different, it's in a
It's
different
on a
plane. Just it's
yeah.
completely different place. Like you're like, what, how do I even
100%.
manage this?
I was an adult when I got alopecia. So
Mhm.
before I got alopecia, I know what it's like to have body image issues before I had hair loss.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
know both before I had hair loss and after I had
Mhm.
hair loss. And it
Mhm.
is two different lions.
Yeah, yeah.
It's two different, it's monster head. Really, it
Yeah.
really is because it's body image issues, but then on top of it, I feel like a whole nother layer is alopecia. So like I already
Absolutely.
had the body image issues, but then,
Uh-huh.
well, you
Uh-huh.
got hair loss now, so good luck dealing with
Exactly.
that.
Like, have fun, and it just stacks on top of it because it changes the way, like, once again, your entire appearance, and that's not, it's not something that's imagined. You're like, wow, I look in the mirror and I'm different today. Like
Yeah,
that's it's alarming. It's
it
different.
is.
And
And I
yeah.
wanted to say this part too that I
Hmm.
saw that was really interesting, obviously on the topic of mental health and psychological
Yes.
impact. Recent research has begun to highlight the psychological impact on people with
Hmm.
hair loss,
Hmm.
as well as the importance of recognizing this condition and providing proper resources such as counseling or therapy, which I thought was interesting.
Perfect.
Recognizing signs of mental health struggles in people with alopecia is crucial in understanding the experiences of people with this condition. A study in the Journal of Patient Reported Outcomes sought to answer this question using an interview that was developed with expert clinician input. Patients with AA described the initial diagnosis of alopecia as traumatizing, devastating, and terrifying, and that hair loss in areas visible to others were most psychosocially burdensome.
Hmm.
These findings supports the results of previous studies, which has also found AA to be emotionally devastating and to have a large impact on self-esteem and social confidence, which goes back to social phobia and everything. But I thought
Yeah.
this article was interesting, and I'll put all the links to all these articles in this
Perfect.
episode description. But I thought this was interesting because it was saying basically that when you get diagnosed, it's more about the counseling and therapy than the treatment. And I was like, I've
Yeah,
never seen an article
absolutely.
talk about that. So I was super hopeful and happy about that, just because, man, that's so key. It's
Please
just,
link that. Please
I
link
will.
that, because
I'll link all these.
that
Yeah.
I think I may have seen like a little headline about it, and I definitely want to dive into it, because that just hits the nail on the head. Because from like, I know we've said it multiple times, we've gone through that trauma of going to a dermatologist, and
Yeah.
they don't know what to say. They
Right.
shove. I mean, and that's their. I mean, it's their job. It's how they're trained. It's what they're told to
Sure.
do, because the resources aren't available even for them.
Right.
So now this research is coming to light, that showing that importance, and hopefully
Ugh,
the tides will change a
my
little bit,
fingers are
because
crossed.
they, yes.
Yeah. My
Yeah,
fingers are crossed.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to switch the conversation now,
Hmm.
since it was the end of the first episode. I know
Okay.
we're talking forever, but we do have a lot of information too that's pretty cool that we found. When I was researching about health and science when it comes to alopecia,
Mhm.
I did find that there was a study out of the University of California paving the way for future advanced therapies to combat hair loss. The study says
Mm.
that they may be on the path towards finding a molecular therapy to combat male or female pattern hair loss. Researchers found there may be a process found in hairy moles that can help stimulate hair growth in people who have lost their hair. And then more study is needed, as early research has only been on mice, obviously. But that kind of
Yeah.
makes sense, because if you think, why are moles hairy? Why is it growing hair? They kind of study it, and it's like, oh, let's put this to the test with the rest of your
That's super
body.
interesting.
Isn't that
Whoa, I
weird?
wonder why that is. Why can't I have just moles on my head?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
what's going on here? Because like, I have a lot of hairy moles. What's going
Yeah,
on?
right. Isn't that interesting? I thought that was so
That's wild.
wild, but it makes
That's an
sense.
interesting study. Yeah, that's how interesting.
Like, who was
Wow.
just sitting there and said, wait a minute? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right. I know. And I've talked to some like micro molecular folks in the past when I was in grad school. Like, I had
Yeah,
some friends who were in that field, and I remember describing like the white hair that I was growing at one point, which is
sure.
interesting because it's like some of it's there, some of it's still not. But I was growing white hair in the place of like my regrowth, and it
Yeah,
was really thick and luscious, nice white hair. I'm like, what's happening? But only that patch.
right.
And of course, my molecular friend was like, "Oh, I wonder what that is." And that's how their brain works. I'm like, "Yes, we need researchers that
Yes,
are asking these questions and want to answer them too."
right.
So I think all we need to do is just ask the questions. But how do we go about like
Yeah, right.
putting, is it like a little suggestion box somewhere
Right. I
where we
know,
can say,
right?
"Hey,
Can
in
we
this
just like
field."
push our information and everything we've learned about the community and people with hair
Exactly.
loss to the
Yeah,
professionals?
yeah. Right. Because I know that there's folks in the field who are obviously like that's the field of research. Like
Oh,
you answer
yeah.
one little bit of the question, then you move on to the next. But where are those priorities at right now? Obviously, people have to follow the money as well. But
Oh, yeah, right.
how are these paths being taken? So
I
I
know.
that
I'm
that's so
always
it's
so
really cool
curious.
that they're
That's why
asking
I
those
thought,
questions.
right. When I found that, I'm like, there's people out there trying, and I'm happy about it.
Yes, yeah, it's
Oh,
slow. It's very slow, but
it's
it's
slow, but it's there.
it's happening.
At
There's
least
people
it's
that have
there.
those curiosities. Yes, that's what's
Yeah,
most important. I just
absolutely.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about like, getting a literature review or something out there
Yeah,
as a resource. I'm sure people have already done it. Maybe I'll like creep around and see if
yeah.
I can find literature reviews just about of alopecia, and find a way to get that out there, because someone's dissertation or papers may just be sitting in a drawer somewhere, or
And
posted
nobody's
online, but
looked at
also
it.
mostly
Right.
sitting in a drawer, or they're just sitting there, and that happens in science a lot.
Yep.
So finding a way to communicate that, I think, is super, super important. So if anyone out there has a literature review that they're willing to share,
Share it.
share it. Please share it. I
Please.
would love to read it,
Oh,
and spread the
agreed.
word too. Yeah.
Absolutely agree. That would be so interesting to read. So if you do or know of any, email it, and then I'll probably post about it and then just let everybody
Yeah.
know that that's out there. Switching gears,
Hmm.
entertainment. A couple of people have actually opened up about their hair loss. I don't know if you guys will know some of these people, maybe not. Got some young people, old people, who knows? So we have Jennifer Grey, who's also Baby in Dirty Dancing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so she has hair loss. She's
Okay.
alopecia. A Columbus poet named
Hmm.
Ruth Awad
Hmm.
90 Day Fiance, if any of you watch that, the person that's on it, Jasmine, and
Hmm.
actress Liza Soberano have all opened up about their hair loss and their experiences with it. I think this helps awareness in a huge way. Not only that, but I also think I truly do. The unfortunate Oscar incident that we all
Hmm.
saw with Jada, I think that helped not only celebrities, but people in the spotlight feel more comfortable
Hmm.
about opening up
Hmm.
with hair loss. Because after that happened, people came out of the woodwork. Ashley Tisdale was
Uh-huh.
another one that came out and
Yep,
talked about
that's right.
alopecia. So it was just like constant people that we've all grown up with talk about hair loss, which I think is important because it's important to
Oh
see
my God,
people
yeah.
in all walks of life.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that hopefully will like boost up that representation that we were talking about in that, in the other
And
episode.
it just keeps
Um,
spreading. Yeah.
yeah, hopefully just keeps spreading and people aren't as concerned. Of course, I know we've chatted about this even in the previous episode that I
Yeah.
was on where like, there's a societal issue where people are pressured to look a certain way. And I think if we have more folks coming out about their alopecia, that others will be less concerned and scared to
Absolutely.
just go out in public as they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Because now that I am open about alopecia, I start
Hmm.
seeing more stuff about people talking either about hair loss or whatever it is. One
Yeah.
of the weird things that I have noticed this too, I don't know if any of you listening have, or you have, Carly. If you're on TikTok, you probably have seen this trend that rosemary oil, just rosemary oil, treats hair loss or thickens your hair with
Huh.
205 million searches. That's so
Oh.
wild to me. 205 million searches for rosemary oil and hair
Oh my
loss.
gosh.
And the
That's super
countless videos of
interesting.
all these famous people showing before and
Hmm.
afters, I'm going to
Hmm.
put that in quotes,
Right, of
of
course.
them, yeah, right, of themselves using the ointment to thicken their hair or reserve hair loss. This is an unstoppable growing trend. It's still a thing. Social media
Interesting.
users say it's a fail-safe, natural, in quotes again, treatment, and some have even been seen to treat cradle cap, which I've heard about, and bald spots on
Mhm.
their babies. So people are just out here using rosemary oil for everything.
Wheeling it
Obviously
up.
I haven't tried it yet. Yeah, right. I haven't tried it yet, but I thought that was so wild when I saw people starting to do that.
So interesting. That's so
Right.
interesting. Just I don't know. I don't just making your hair extra oily.
Right.
Just
Well, what's funny is when I read this, I was like, okay, I have to do research on this and see if
of
this is
course.
even
Yeah, yeah.
credible. So
Mhm,
I
mhm.
did find one thing, not much, but I did find a 2015 study that compared rosemary oil with the established hair loss treatment of minoxidil, the 2%
Okay.
minoxidil, and its effect on alopecia was essentially the same, which I thought was very bizarre. No
Oh,
change after
okay.
3 months, but a significant regrowth after 6. But this person also said, it was a dermatologist, they said, bear in mind that this is a statistical significance. In real life, you may not notice a dramatic difference. And just like minoxidil, if you stop using it, the hair loss continues. So I thought that was
Gotcha.
really weird. I was like, whoa, that's so bizarre because it's
Yeah.
kind of like a natural way. So it wouldn't really be toxic to you, but just bizarre, isn't it?
Oh, right, right. That is really bizarre. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'll have to poke
You have
into
to,
that and
yeah,
see.
research that because
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
take anything that we're saying that
Right,
we
of
research
course.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
take it
mean,
with
it
a
is
grain of
interesting to
salt.
see what lengths, people will go. You don't want it to be like straight snake oil. You're not like,
Oh,
oh,
right.
are people selling this? Or,
Is it
it's
just
all
bogus? People profiting off of this?
TikTok trend.
Yes,
Exactly. Yeah, it's hard to say.
absolutely.
It's really hard to say. But hey, if it makes you feel better to try it out, I
Put
say
oil over your head, sure.
might smell
Go
kind
for
of
it.
nice. I don't know.
You're right. Oh, I thought that was so wild. A
Wow.
cool thing, though,
Mhm.
in regards to statistics, jump to a new topic. Google has seen a 300% increase in searches
Mhm.
for scalp health and alopecia in the past year.
Just alopecia.
Yeah,
Interesting.
scalp
Not even
health
just
and
scalp health. Because
alopecia.
scalp health, I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, but
sure.
the alopecia itself, that's
Well,
interesting. I
I
wonder what
think
sparked it.
I think it was the Oscar incident. I think that's why
Oh,
people just started
okay.
to Google it and see
I
what was,
see.
yeah.
I
Like,
gotcha.
do I
Yeah, I
have
guess that was a
alopecia because
year,
I have
a
thin
little over a
hair?
year ago. Uh-huh.
Right.
Right.
But
That
it
was
still
about,
has
that's right.
continued. Yeah, it's still a
Yeah, yeah.
topic of conversation, which I think is interesting.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Real wild, I know. And then the second thing about statistics, which I thought was pretty wild, is according to a new market research report published by Global Market Estimates, the global alopecia market is
Mhm.
projected to grow by 9.6% from 2023 to 2028. The growth of the alopecia
Huh.
market is primarily driven by the rising incidence of alopecia, advancements in treatment options, greater awareness and information accessibility, evolving lifestyle and beauty norms,
Mhm,
technological
mhm.
progress, and the growing geriatric population.
Oh.
Yeah, that's kind of like a big jump. I feel like that's important too. If people know about alopecia, then they'll be nicer to people in school and be nicer to people in general.
Right, right. Yeah. And it's interesting that, awareness is helping bump that up too. And it makes sense. It makes total sense. Like, hopefully that's just an exponential growth at that point. On the flip side, hopefully, it doesn't become like a predatory thing where people are
Agreed.
targeted. Because for a long time, I hesitate to post anything related to my alopecia because I get spam
Oh,
from like hair growth product
yes.
stuff on my Instagram, and I just
The
like
amount of times you
really
have to
annoyed.
block and delete and
Exactly, like
it's
blocking,
horrible.
deleting, yeah, just deleting messages and comments, everything. It's like it's pretty wild. But knowing that that awareness is working is pretty great too.
Yeah,
To know that
I
people are
totally
talking.
agree. I haven't researched alopecia in a really long time, so I was just blown away by all of this
Hmm.
when I was reading through it. The last part of all the updates is Congress. So obviously, we all know Ayanna
Hmm.
Pressley. She is a fellow
Hmm.
Alopecian and a congresswoman, but alongside two representatives, Bonnie Coleman of New Jersey and Jennifer McClellan, I'm assuming from Virginia, they introduced the Recognition of Traction Alopecia in Service Women of 2023, which has to do with military grooming standards
Right.
and ensuring service members can meet their occupational demands, including neatly groomed hair. Adherence to grooming standards can be more complex for service women because of the variances in length, texture, and bulk of their hair. The use of high, tight ponytails,
Hmm.
headgear, and chemical hair products employed by many servicewomen to adhere to military grooming standards contributes to permanent damage to their hair and scalp, and a lot have traction alopecia.
Oh
Which,
my gosh.
right, you don't even think about stuff like that. You know what I mean?
I Right, and it's surprising to me because like why does this standard even exist
Right.
here? Like, blows me away that there's a standard that your hair has to be cemented to your head. And
Right.
also, once again, everyone's hair
It's
textures are super
completely
different.
different.
So one person's routine is going to be drastically different than another person's routine. But also,
Yeah.
like, you're serving the military. You're not, I don't understand the importance of having your hair stuck
Mm,
to your head for
Right.
that. As long as it's out, I mean, if it's out of the way for whatever task you're performing, like,
Sure.
all right, got it.
But the
But
standards they have to meet
oh,
is
yeah.
wild.
It
They
is what
are
I
wild.
yeah. It's, like, super taut, right? And, like,
Oh,
which causes traction alopecia.
yep,
Right.
absolutely. Which I thought was so interesting because I would have never thought about that. If I didn't research
Yeah,
all of this, I would have never thought
yeah.
about something like that. So for,
Wow.
congresswomen to be fighting for stuff like that is so cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody knows about the Selector Crown Act too that Ayanna Presley does. And that she had an event for the second year and she gave away 200 custom wigs for women and children experiencing
Oh, that's
hair loss from
amazing.
chemotherapy and alopecia. So she's just a rock star.
She is a rock
She's
star.
doing so much for people with alopecia out
Yeah.
there. She truly is. I love seeing her updates and her on the stand and talking with her bald head. It's happy to
It's
see people
amazing.
like that. But yeah, that's all the information I have. And we have 6 minutes left, so that was like perfect timing.
That is perfect timing. That's great.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I know.
Um,
Do you have anything
yeah, is
else
there
you want to touch on for the last
I
couple of
mean,
minutes?
really? I mean, I think we covered almost everything. I did wanna
Yeah.
make a little note about just alopecia and art. I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
like alopecia artists out there, whether your topic of your art surrounds alopecia or not. But please share that with us. I've done a little bit of art related to alopecia in the past just to kind of translate my thoughts into something, like my
Yeah.
emotions into something. And I plan to do a little bit more of that, but I feel like that it also helps people like relate to others a lot more too.
Yeah.
So kind of
Art
I
on
don't know
all the planes, like
exactly.
poetry,
Yeah.
writing, painting, drawing,
Oh
whatever
yeah,
it
and
is.
music as well too.
Music, absolutely. I
Yeah,
know a
which
couple
by
people actually that I follow on Instagram, so maybe you know what, I'll probably tag them in the episode description.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I'll do that. The few people that I do know, but yeah, if anybody knows of any alopecia artists, please let us know. We would love to showcase them, put them on blast for other people to see, because it's so interesting to see stuff like that.
Yes.
Because I remember when we first met, there were a couple people in our support group that we were in that did alopecia
Mhm.
art. It was
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah, so I'm all about that. I would love to see more people that utilize art with alopecia. That would be really cool.
Yeah, yeah, we gotta start a group.
I know,
We gotta
right?
start some sort of group
That
'cause
would
I
be so
haven't seen it much.
cool.
I remember getting some art out there years ago with a forum, and no one else had been doing it at the time, but also the community wasn't as tight as it is now, so I feel like
Sure.
if we get it out there for art, music, poetry, all of it, like, we need
Right.
to, like, create a community, so, if you're out
Absolutely.
there.
I have a list in my head, but I have to remember.
Yes.
So in the episode description after this, when I'm editing, I'll find some people and I'll
Perfect.
link their stuff so people can
Yeah,
look at their Instagrams and stuff.
alright,
But
that sounds great.
yeah, cool. This was an awesome
Yeah,
episode.
this is fun.
Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you
it.
for
It's
having me.
always, yeah, it's always fun to talk to someone, so I'm not just talking to the abyss. But you guys know what to do. If you want to get a hold of those bald chicks, you can email the show at thosebaldchicks@gmail.com or send a message on Instagram or Facebook. All of the links to everything you need is in the direct me, and you'll also find all of the links to everything that I have talked about today in regards to the treatment that we talked about, the research, everything. I have everything listed here, so I'll put that all there so you can do your own reading on your own time. But thanks so much, Karli.
Yeah, thanks, Paige.
I loved it. It was such a great conversation.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thank you so much again.
Of course. Until next time, ball peck out.